Welcome. Thank you for tapping in, tuning in. This is episode 2 of Evolutionary Babbles, covering the new Netflix series, Dahmer Monster, the Jeffrey Dahmer story. It's 10 episodes, right? Feel free if you've watched it or whatever and everything. That's great. If you don't want to watch it, you don't care about it, this is just Evolutionary Babbles. In regards to what's happening with this show that got me fired up. So definitely watch episode 1 before watching episode 2. We dive into the sea of what the fudge and all this, everything that needs to just be highlighted, you know what I mean, from an evolutionary perspective of shifting vibrations, energy, frequencies, vibrations, being able to see a timeline of a time span that some of you may have lived through, or remember this story and now can have a timeline accounting of certain kind of things to see with such clarity and everything about what evolutionary lessons can we learn from this, and uplift and shift and stop this. Right? Because I was talking about episode 2 and episode 1, and this one is it's we're gonna go through it together. Even though I watched the episode, so again, back to just a little mini background drop with me. I just started again watching certain kind of things, enjoying it as a family thing. I'm looking at it as a family thing with my daughter. But for 10 plus years or so, I did not watch any more shows or TV. I don't know what's going on in the world and all this kind of stuff. And and so now I'm back in. So a lot of yous or the world and stuff like that have already seen a lot of kind of things, someone like me, whatever. I haven't seen a lot of things I don't know and stuff like that. So either way, I just think this is really cool. I like to utilize my time in evolutionary kind of ways, and how can this be something that we can gain or reign, supreme in our mind, body, heart, and soul kind of things. I'm always going to infuse it with that kind of thing. And even though this is innerAttainment for your entertainment, there's a lot of mana for you to gather from here. Do you know what I'm saying? So we're going to just travel through. If you're interested, thank you. If you're not, keep it moving. You know what I'm saying? Either way, but I will say this from Jump Street. If you want to see this show, okay, hold on. I'm going to close my window. I still get self-conscious. You know what I mean? When I do this kind of thing, I'm like, uh-oh. Because, I'm sensitive as me. I'm like, somebody's listening. Hold on. Anywho, I'm back. Even though, I'm still loud, I guess, if somebody really wants to hear, they could, you know what I mean? I'm always giggling too. So either way, episode 2, I have been excited to get into. And so this is the time that I have for myself to record here for my YouTube channel to do that. You know what I'm saying? Life, we all live, and things we got to do. And so when we make time to do that which we love and want to do, and find the time to do that which you desire to do. Yes, poetess too. Mystic poetess is I. Okay, very expressive in my the way that I speak, okay? And if you're into that, cool. If you don't like that, you don't have to, you know what I'm saying? But either way, if you find yourself here, there's mana in here for you, my dear. Take with it as you will. Let it be everything that you need to, or just this is innerAttainment for your entertainment. But back to what I was going to say before I closed the window and something like that. It's spoiler alert. Do you hear that? Because I don't hear nothing about, oh my God, I didn't see that and you told me. I'm going to assume that whomever is here and continues to watch is with conscious accountability. Okay, which is, we're going to talk about accountability. That's big freaking here. I could cry. It's Pisces moon. It's okay. But seriously, accountability. We'll talk about that too. But yeah, so I'm going to be covering every single episode when I get the chance, I'm here with my daughter and stuff like that. She's over there. But and this is an added new venue, because evolutionary BI don't stick me to one kind of thing about anything, because I'm evolving. It's a lie. It's a lie. Right? It feels good to be alive, right? But these people are not. Some of them. Right? So we're on episode 2. Spoiler alert for you. If you want to watch it, go watch it, then come back. And then, we could chat after that. But if not, please understand, I'm going to assume that you don't care, which I could understand because I don't care. In regards to stuff like this, I'm like, okay, just tell me. You want to say something, say it. I'm probably not gonna watch the movie anyways, or something like that. You know what I mean? If you have no desire, watch it, and this is just, again, innerAttainment for your entertainment, and you're just here. Welcome. I like you. Right? So, right. And if not, I'm gonna assume that you watched it and you know what I'm talking about, and you're just chiming in. You know what I'm saying? Because I am going to speak freely, right? Freely, right? And I don't care if you saw it or not. If you're listening, that's because I'm forewarned you that I will speak freely and say that which I will. And I'm going to be describing stuff that happened in episode 2. So if you didn't see that and you don't want to know what is going to go down too, then don't watch this, okay? Before not seeing that. You know what I mean? So, yeah. Hello. So welcome. So, yeah, this is episode 2. Episode 2, we're going to go through because episode 2 is really fudged up. Right? Episode 2 is so fudged up too in terms of when you think about it from a timeline of occurrence. When we think about, if only. And if we go back to episode 1, and I did a little bit of I guess, listening. And again, I don't know how accuracy this can be, you know what I mean? Because there's a lot of stigma, fear, and all this kind of stuff. But with humility and with trauma things, the guy that from episode 1, right? We're gonna go into episode 2, but the guy from episode 1 that escaped, the Tracy guy, I forgot his name. They depicted in the story too is as if he is a homosexual. It turns out, and as you can see, even in the actual court, and you can find it, you can Google, you can go to YouTube and stuff like that, you can actually see his testimony back in 1991, 1992, when he was talking about what occurred to him, okay? He is not a homosexual. But he did get offered money to pose for nudes and stuff like that, and he could use the money. Okay? So we can get so lost in what somebody else is saying about what's happening here. It's just like people can make this a color war. This is just a human stupidity war. About, wow, a town of idiots failing everybody and themselves. That's what this world can feel like. Right? So, either way, pissy be my pants when episode 2 came in. It's just as a mother too. You know what I'm saying? I'm a mother. I am a mother. And if you're a parent, this should fucking upset you. Granted, right? This should fucking upset you. Because I want to know that if I turn my back, my neighbor with high morals or just human decency, if they saw something or felt something, would help. Or, just be, I don't know, but, helpful. This was not helpful. You need me? Right? right? Don't get me started. But yeah, so anyways, and then all right, so let's get into episode 2. Spoiler alert. So if you don't want to know what happened in episode 2, hop off, because I'm going to talk about episode 2, right? We're going to talk about episode 2, right? So episode 2 comes into where they're giving a little bit of history about Jeffrey Dahmer and his upbringing, you know, with his parents, who were always, for the first 17, 18 years of his life, always going at it, apparently. Like, that's the depiction that they give, that they're constantly fighting. The mother's like a hypochondriac, is what you can find in other news media outlets, and who tried and attempted suicide too, and all this kind of stuff, and would take heavy medication, right? So I actually looked into that when I was watching episode 3. So we'll talk about that in episode 3, the intake of medication that the mother had. I even wrote down some of the names, and I'm going to do a little bit of research with that too. So, but that's for episode 3. Okay, so we can talk about that later. These medications that you keep on taking to alleviate. I got a headache. I got mad cow disease about so many freaking kind of things. You know what I mean? I need something. Give me that. I feel better now. Do you? Right? So, anyways, we'll talk about that in episode 3. Medications, you know what I mean? Like, like sickening. She was taking 26 pills a day and pregnant in every way. And wait till I tell you what kind of medication she was taking while pregnant. So let's not even go there. So out of the womb, he was a druggie. Yeah. So just think about the components of the molecules and atoms and the nutrients and the ambiotic, symbiotic fluids and all these kind of things that are developing in the fetus, right? As the mother is taking 26 pills a month a day. But anyways, that's episode 3, right? So we're on episode 2. So episode 2 gets into the history a little bit about like where he learned how to cut and preserve and dissect, and his fascination with like these taxidermy, maybe possibly the field he can go into of you know, his career and stuff like that. But that's not what he had planned, because that's something else. He had something else in mind, because he was getting all these other kind of feelings inside. When he would touch the guts inside, he was like, I'm going to eat you. Gross. But seriously, if you're really interested in getting into the mind of somebody that just truly I was watching I didn't get to watch all of it because, again, busy bee the alchemist, right? So like, you know, just make time for the things that we want to make time for and stuff like that. But he was giving like an interview and stuff like that. And right, like, let's read it as we read it. And the analyzation, and there was one of the interviewer, she had asked if he was out, would he still be doing all this kind of stuff? And of course the answer is yes, and all this kind of stuff. And is he fixable too, like, and all this kind of stuff? And he's like, you know, like whatever and stuff like that. And there was parts of like when he would speak and like the recollection and the memory, and you saw the actual like still sitting in that interview in the spot that he was, and he spoke as intellectually and as conscious as he did. This is why he was deemed sane, not insane, although what he was doing was insane in the membrane, right? Right. Like, you know, how do you try to understand something that which you're not? It's hard. And this is why a lot of wars exist and certain kind of things and controls and all this kind of stuff. But, you know, there's certain situations like such as this that like, it's like an abomination, right? Like, you know, an anomaly in life that, you know, anyways, and then just a lot of contributing factors that helped support this lunatic on the loose that was just silent and deadly too, and like reckless and careless. Because wait till we get to episode 3 about how in episode 2 something could have been prevented, and this is where the anger and the upset comes in, right? So apparently up in episode 2, right, so they give me a little bit of history into his back, his childhood, where he would dissect roadkill. That was what they called roadkill, but actually, as it turns out, if you watch any of his like real interviews and stuff like that, it wasn't so much roadkill. It started off as roadkill, but then he was already killing animals, right? And using that to dissect and stuff like that. So that wasn't really emphasized in the show, right? On the Netflix series. So I'm just sharing with you, this is just like a little bit outside information. So, right, because it's like to say to go from such a, like a massive kill, like such as a person, like there was a buildup to that. Like there's like a crescendo. It's like masturbation, right? The crescendo is the buildup of what you're building here. So it's the same thing as this feeling of adrenaline that he would get, right? Because when we get to episode 3, I will then share with you his first kill, which also puts light to the psychopathic tendencies of remorse too, but twisted and distorted, like, ooh, like, you know, ooh, like, right? But anyways, so but there was a buildup, like, so episode 2, there's a buildup because, you know, he was staying with his grandmother and he ended up sneaking in. He stayed at a department clothing store that he had purchased something from earlier that day. And he hid in like the dressing room and stuff like that until the store closed in order to steal the mannequin. And in one of the episodes, right, he leaves his grandmother's, he leaves out of his bedroom to leave to, I guess, go to work or whatever the case may be, where he was going, dressed and ready, and closes his door, and his grandmother's coming upstairs with his laundry. And he was like, oh, you can leave the laundry by the door. I like to do my own bed. It was like, it wasn't laundry, it was new sheets or something like that. And so he proceeded to leave, and her curiously, like, especially, you know, energy, let's talk about energy, because that goes back to episode 1. His grandmother sensed something was off. Something was so off that it made her so curious that she had to go and wait till he left, or she felt like he left, to go and sneak into his room, right? Of course, curiosity kills the cat sometimes, right? No, don't say that. I have 3 cats and they're very curious and they're very safe, okay? Right. So she goes into his bedroom and she sees like something laying on his bed, but it's covered with a blanket. And so it's covered with blanket, and then she's like creeping over to it. And then when she lifts the covers, we know it's the mannequin. But then it jumps to a dead body on one of his kills, laying on a mattress full of blood and stuff like that. So we don't see that the grandmother sees the mannequin, but we know it's the mannequin because he stole it the night before, like, or whatever, and, you know, and made love to it and stuff like that, and it was acting out fantasies. And from episode 3, you can understand, because it goes even deeper to his youthful ages, where you can see where other developing fantasies were also occurring in his imagination. And he's been drinking for a long time, since high school, and he even anyway, that's episode 3. But either way, where you can see by the time he gets to the grandmother's, which is later, which is episode 2, but although episode 3 is showing you an earlier time from his upbringing, because we're going into his first kill, right? There's a development of all of this shit, right? Which is the progression of the story, because it's really sad, because in episode 2, we're like, oh my God, if you just did what you had to fucking do, if you just did that, 5 other people wouldn't have died, or that boy wouldn't have died. But if you go to episode 3 and you see what happened there with the first kill, It's like, what? When that happens, and then you see what happens after, because we're going to talk about that from episode 3. Like, what? Then we can say, holy shit, it could have been stopped from back then, and you could have saved 16 other people's lives. But we're not there yet. We're building it up. So anyways, his dissection skills and his knowledge of learning how to properly do these kind of things came from his father, and also school dissection, whatever, and stuff like that, right? So and you would see in many of the little depictions of him cutting these animals or these things, and he really enjoyed it, and touching, and like that's a build-up, a crescendo. It's like masturbation, right? And stuff like that, right? So you can see his pleasure for penetrating the skin, right? Penetrating the skin with sharp objects, right? So here's a word, and I don't even know if I'm going to say it correctly, but I had to look it up because like you can see, so he has piquerism. I don't know. Piquerism. It's Piqueuris, like Sam, M like Mary. Piquerism. It's an extreme interest in stabbing or sticking things like pins, needles, knives, things like that. Piquerism. So clearly, that be him. Easily identifiable, right? So and also he worked in episode 2, you learn that he worked in like a meat shop. So he was always like grinding meat, and his enjoyment of putting it through the machines and like making sausage, my daughter was saying, like yeah, there was like an extra like delicious. So in episode 2, you also learned that well, I looked into it more because by the time let's jump forward a little bit, right? But I really want to overly emphasize again, because we're going to go back to episode 1 where I'm talking about intuition. Trust that shit. Stop second guessing it, and stop like putting it under the carpet and still doing things going against that how you feel. Because in every single episode, no matter what's going on, what I'm realizing is all these people, I don't know what they did with their intuition. But clearly, except for Niecy Nash, the nosy neighbor who was constantly complaining and really trying to like get this guy found out without knowing what he was really doing. Episode 2, I could imagine, right? People could make this a color war. Again, this is just a human stupidity war. Call it what you want. Everybody wants to project on out. I'm not with all of that kind of stuff. Hold yourself accountable for the stupid that you are. Because there was a lot of stupid things that happened, and that just shows what happens. And then you could think about like someone like the character of like Niecy Nash, right? Where she kept on and kept on and kept on, and the system, we can say, oh, the system failed her, the system failed her, the system failed her, and all this kind of shit. And it could be discouraging. I could understand that. That could feel discouraging to keep on going you're trying to get justice, you're trying to get justice, you're trying to get justice. And it's like, damned if you do, damned if you don't. But damn, this was stupid. And then I started to do a little bit more research about this stupid. And I started to read about it, and then I just hit record. And I was like, you know what? I'll read about it more with you, so that'll be like in a live time, because I don't understand. Right? So yeah, so I just really do want to really emphasize like trust your intuition. And then like human like disconnection too, because I just looked down and because remember I wrote notes. I take notes, guys. I take notes, okay, while I'm watching. So because I'm enjoying this, right? there's a memory or into his early youth, like adolescence, like I want to say like elementary school probably, because I don't think it was middle school, it was elementary school. I guess it's like the first day of class or something like that. I don't know, or not the first day of class is something, but some kids were bringing the teacher like an apple and putting it on their desk. So apple, a kid comes in, puts an 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 apple, he comes in, he puts a jar of like a what are those called? Hold up. Mason jar, closed with a lid, filled with water and some like river frogs, or like frogs, tadpoles or something. Right? So now this is adolescence, okay? So we're gonna build up. So he puts it on the desk and she's like, what is this? And he says what it is, the frog or whatever, river frogs or something. I'm totally not saying the right name, but I'm just sharing with you. But I know that they were frogs of some kinds or something. And so she put it down. So class ends, and then another student from the class stays behind, and he's like, what are you gonna do with that, like, whatever, and stuff like that. And they talked, and then she was like, why, do you want it and stuff like that? And he's like, okay. And so he took it. Okay, so this little boy who's shy, nervous, gives his teacher a gift. Okay, I'm again, this is the same person that turned into a serial killer. So, but it shows a breaking of his own spirit and heart. But then his response to that and what he does is like, okay, people break your heart. It's, it's like, that's what you do about it. That's not normal. That's not normal. Somebody take him to see a shrink. Somebody love their son enough to realize that he needs fucking help. Oh, because in episode 3, his mother, as a mother, I was like, this bitch. How dare you? Hey, unpopular opinions in certain kind of degrees, but nah, that was not cool. But we'll talk about that in episode 3. Okay, we're in episode 2. So the teacher, without much sensitivity or compassion, I would say, because this little boy just gave you a gift. You say thank you in every kind of way, and then you give it away in the same fucking day to another student in the same class as this boy. That's just not nice. And I think about that with the ways of the world, although we're not going to focus on all that kind of shit, but most people are not nice. And then if you're nice, right? I get this because I'm nice. This is suspicious, or don't like you, or don't accept the nice because that means you want something. Now, how about it's just, let's be the breed of seed of exampling that we need to be in this world, because there's a lot of cruelty in it anyway. So, and this is just my natural disposition, because it took a lot of motherfucking work to get to this position of alchemy, energy. And I'll be damned if some outside energy who's just fickle and miserable, or whatever the case may be, who can't accept the nice in me, that want to belittle or shame me for being kind in a society that fucking needs it. But I still got sarcasm. Right? So, yeah, she bites. So yeah, this witch of a teacher, right? Don't call me the witch though. She makes stuff for her. But if you understood the parables of symbology that I use in my own terminologies of life, your definition and my definition of anything and everything may not necessarily be the same. You know what I'm saying? But anyways, no judgments passed. So this witch of a teacher, insensitive, not nice, didn't think that one through. You're the adult in that room. Could have said, no, he just gave that to me, and I know that, you know, thank you so much, but I don't want to hurt his feelings. So anyway, so the boy takes the jar and he's outside talking with a bunch of other schoolmates, and he's holding the jar, and it's like, I guess, the end of the school day kind of too, because they're gonna start leaving to go home. And Jeffrey is walking by himself, and he's walking past this group of boys, and he sees the mason jar with the fish. He's like, you can't have that. No. Right? He was a little weird and awkward about his expression, right? About what he was trying to tell this boy, but the boy was like, it's mine. She gave it to me. Heartbroken. So the end of the school day happens. That boy goes home. Guess who's following that boy home? Sneaking like a creeper. You guessed it. The serial killer we're talking about, Jeffrey Dahmer. So this little boy, about 8 years old, I don't even know, but he's little. His little glasses, his lunchbox, creeper. Watch the boy go inside his house, and I guess he went to go take a shower. The boy, Jeffrey Dahmer, walked into this boy's house. Didn't care, because he could have got caught by anybody. He don't know who lived there. Walks in, goes to the table where the boy put down the jar, takes the jar, and leaves his house, and goes to this place where I guess he put the water and the frogs together, and pours. Well, I couldn't decide, but I'm unclear with it. But my daughter was like, no, it's motor oil or whatever, into the jar of water. And I guess those froggies died. Spoiler alert! So Jeffrey killed the frogs. Some kind of oil or somethings that he poured into the jar and closed it. And those poor little froggies who didn't have to die, but did. Whose fault was that? Everybody wants to make somebody at fault for something. And granted, there are people at fault for some things. Jeffrey is at fault for killing all these people and eating them. And he held himself accountable. And he spoke so monotone and so matter of fact and so respectfully. You could have mistaken him for a nice guy. Not at all. Hold on. I'm back. Now that you know, I just must pause. But I just kept thinking about eating some more of my pasta. So, so I had to go take a few more bites. I was like, okay, I need some of that. But where were we? It's not cannibalism. You know what I'm saying? But yeah, so spoilers, right? Another thing, like this is abstract thinking put into a now tangible timeline for one to be able to really see what's happening here. I'm learning a lot of like new terminologies that all of you use. I didn't know what generation Z, X, B, millennial, or boomer, what category. So I had looked up what years was like Gen Z, what year was Gen X, what year was millennial, what year was boomer. You guys like to label a lot of things. So anyways, that was just a little side talk. but yeah, so episode 2 goes many different directions and stuff. They're giving you clips here and there to feed off of, to give you a insight into everything, right? But now we have a timeline. Now we have actual, like, you can use your thinking caps, right? And you can see things at that. Just like the misinformation from episode 1 that has all these people thinking that that guy was gay. He's not gay. But in episode 1, it's selling it as that. If you look at the newspapers and if you look at the depiction and all this kind of stuff of this homophobia during that time and reasons why the cops didn't do the job that they're freaking there to do, you're supposed to put yourself at risk, right? That's the role you play, the duty, the call of duty that you pick up and that you decide to have as your career, to uphold and protect and serve. So homophobia is an excuse to not do your job? Then why the fuck you a cop for? Why are you upholding the law and all this kind of stuff and supposed to hear protect and serve, and you didn't protect and serve nothing? Because in episode 2 it proves. And again, we can beat down a whole system and say it's these 2 cops and say all cops and stuff like that. But this is, again, everybody wants to point and categorize and overly generalize and all this kind of stuff. I hate statistics. I hate, like, or all these kind of like labeling kind of things, because it's like, I'm revolutionary. I'm revolutionary. And in knowing this too shall pass, and this too can change, and there is this and that dependent upon you and all this kind of stuff. And so it's like, what information and misinformation are we going to continue to cycle? Start seeing shit for as it is and really think for yourself without entertaining every single thought and making it as your own that comes from somebody else, and then incorporating that with yourself, and then distorted illusions is your hell. Because this shouldn't have gone down. But if you get to episode 3, this shouldn't have even existed either. This shouldn't, but it happened, right? So my crown is issues, right? So in episode 2, you're traveling back into 1966, showing him riding a school bus where the other kids were picking on this Negro child, right? This one so it's, again, like the depiction, because it's in the 60s, there was still like, racism, segregation, all this kind of stuff happening, right? He came home in episode 2, right, to the baby, his little brother, crying, left by himself, right, and all this kind of stuff, and keeps walking into the house, and his mother's laying there, passed out with pills knocked over to the side, and he has to call an ambulance and all this kind of stuff. And the father came home and was horrible towards the wife for attempting to commit suicide, thinking that she was just seeking attention, and, total jerk, emotionless, and the parents are fighting. And Jeffrey asking his dad to please not go, and the father like just leaving and like going away and staying at a hotel and all this kind of stuff. We're traveling because during that time he was still completing his like doctorates or some shit like that. So he was in school and like, whatever. But if you go into the news, like outside of this movie or outside of this series, there's misinformation out there too. So what's really true, because in some news media thingies or, information places, they say the mother was having an affair when they got their divorce, which he was 18 or 17, 18 years old. And And then in some reports, it says that the father was having an affair. Whatever. They probably both were. You know what I'm saying? But again, I'm not there. That's speculation mornings, because that's a lot of just misinformation out there. So don't go attacking and all this kind of stuff, because I looked up too, like, some stuff about what happened with mom, like, after all this kind of stuff, and she did interviews too, and she spoke her like how she felt, and how she was holding herself accountable and responsible for the part that she played and all this kind of stuff. But we'll talk about that more in episode 3. Hold on. Right, so I'm just, giving a brief little, like, recap, right, of everything. So in episode 2, so leading up to when we get to the story about what I'm gonna say. So the theft of the store mannequin, right? The roadkill dissections, right? You also learned that he had previous 4 arrest convictions prior to being arrested for the murders. But that was just that. This is where you also learn that he had performed a lobotomy, you know what I mean? And that he kept the skulls and stuff like that. And whatever, the teacher with the frogs, giving it to the other student. Great. Okay. So here we go. One of his victims. I don't know how to pronounce that name. It's hard to say. But if you go and you look up this boy, because he was a boy, 14 years old. 14 years old. 14 years old. And he looked it. That's important here. But you can look it up yourself, and you can go look at the real life photo of this 14-year-old boy before you excuse the stupidity of these officers when we get to that story. Okay. So anyways, Jeffrey lured a boy in to his place by offering alcohol, because it was in this liquor store. So these boys, these young minors, all minors, were outside this liquor store because I think they got turned down for beer or liquor or something like that. And Jeffrey just so happened to be going to this liquor store or whatever store it was, but it's to buy alcohol, okay? And he quickly assesses the situation and knows that these minors need alcohol and stuff like that, and they want it and stuff like that. So he would be able to be the provider of it, totally manipulation creeper kind of status, like this grown-ass man freaking seeking to hang out with minors and stuff like that, but whatever. So he gets them alcohol. That's how he wins. That's how he gets them in, right? So like in episode 1, 2, we talk about the other guy, the Tracy. I think his name is Tracy Edwards, right? The escapee, the one that put an end to this 13-year killing spree that Jeffrey Dahmer got away with, that could have ended on his first kill, by the way. We'll talk about that in episode 3. But in episode 2, we're going to talk about how 5 other people got killed after this incident that could have also ended the killing spree. You know what I mean? Right? So anyways, so he lures this boy in with $100. Back to that whole Edward, the Tracy Edward guy, who is not homosexual, who clearly states that in his court testimonies, and I believe has children, and also was like I think he had like family court where he wasn't paying his child support and all this kind of stuff. And when he's on the stand, he sounds like, again, don't talk about stereotypical and all this kind of stuff, because I just want to give the strong depiction. In episode 1, the docu-series and all this kind of stuff, this Netflix series, they made this guy, Tracy Edwards, the true survivor, the one who had to go through this whole motherfucking ordeal, okay, who was never the fucking same again, who was courageous enough to give his testimony after surviving such a horrific experience, and did not even know the sadistic plan that had DAHMER had succeeded, he would have been one of his next victims, realizing only after that which he escaped from, for real. In episode 1, in this Netflix thing, they made this character extra gay. Okay? So again, why? Why? So that you can keep the story of the prejudice against the homosexuals, or this race war between black and white and all this kind of minority systems? Or how about we just look at it for the horror that it truly is, and just human species here happening, right? So, okay. You can do your own research. You can look it up. He's not gay. But he did agree to get paid $100. I think it was $50. Whatever, I don't remember the amount. It's $50 or $100. It doesn't fucking matter. The agreement was for nude photo. And that in the court testimony too, in the real life court testimony, not the Netflix one, he says he didn't do any like homosexual like stuff, like, or made passes. It was all strictly selling them that he was this photographer, and he took photos, nude photos, and like to get models and paid them. So you had this guy, straight man. All right, you give me $100, and it didn't even go down like the way that it went down in Netflix, where whatever. But anyways, you know. So that's episode 1, right? But episode 2, he lures this boy back to his place because he got alcohol, and he offered him too money. So in this episode, where the boy is 14, by the way, and tells him that too when he's in his apartment, but when he's outside, I don't remember what age he told him. It doesn't matter. He was 14 years old, and he looked like a 12, 13, 14-year-old. You can go find the real picture, okay? Now imagine your child at 12, 13, 14 years old. You know they look like 12, 13, 14. I don't care how grown a child thinks that they look or wants to act. And granted, some kids look more grown than other kids, but you know what a 12, 13, 14-year-old looks like. There's no mistaking that. You can pretend. Pedophiles do. No. Okay. So from this storyline, the boy is like, you don't know who I am, to him, and he's like, so apparently this is where you learn of his previous convictions too, that he had up to 4 previous arrest convictions prior to being arrested for these murders. And one of those like arrests was this boy that he had in his apartment, the 14-year-old, was the brother of another boy who got away, got lured in by Jeffrey with like $100 to take photos, and took advantage of him. And the family had like pressed charges or something like that. And he was a registered sex offender, I believe, or something like that. Don't quote me on that though. And either way, this boy that he lured in now, the one that didn't make it, but he almost did. This is where his system failed him, and the adults. Okay. So so you learn the narrative from this little introduction, but by this time he already slipped him sleeping pills. I learned from reading. You know, in the episodes, I don't know what he's using to put in their drinks that makes them pass out, but in real testimony and news articles and stuff, it was sleeping pills. He was giving his victims sleeping pills, which caused them to pass the fudge out after having any drink from him that he served them. So this boy, because that's what he tried to do in episode 1 to the one that got away, but he had the wrong drink or something. He's like, I don't drink that or something. He's like, I don't like that one. It's like, he's like, oh, you're right. He said, I like this one. And then he was like, oh, you're right. It's strawberry. You should have told me that. So he didn't drink the poison, which is what kept him conscious and not knocked out like all the other victims. So he didn't suffer that fate, you know? But this 14-year-old boy drank his drink. He drank his drink. He drank his drink. But before he passes out, helplessly left to the sadistic, mutilator, cannibal, psychopathic killer who I was reading, and also I heard him speak the actual real Jeffrey Dahmer. And I don't know, like, you know, I'm going to keep on exploring this a little bit more, but just like getting into the psychosis of this man, like it just, he made these other men suffer horribly because of his inability to accept his own homosexuality. Because like if you hear his like testimony, or when he speaks to these interviewers and all this kind of stuff, he never references like sexual activity or lust or passion towards this. Like he speaks about it through the kill and all this kind of stuff and things like that. But like it's the act, because if you like, so that when he did his first kill, and then he didn't kill for 9 years, and then had that next kill, he when he had that first kill, which we'll talk about in episode 3, the leading up to that, which comes from his fantasy, right? But he speaks about, like, if you hear the real Jeffrey Dahmer speak, he speaks about blackouts. And I feel, I'm going to explore more, but I feel like those blackouts were during the things he's blacking out, which is that homosexual act. Because even when he killed that, we'll talk about that later, but like he doesn't recall. He woke up and the guy laying next to him was dead. So this is deep, real deep. So his own inability, he's never admitted it, kind of like, never like except in this episode. But it was only to save his ass. And he got away with it. Okay. So he drugs his boy. We learn already that he already molested his brother, but his brother survived. And so we know he already has other prior convictions and arrests, right? So now this boy passes out. And this boy, you see from his side, we could only imagine. You can understand that. We can only imagine based off of what occurred that can lead one to speculate that this could be a possibility. Let's check this out. He drugs this boy. The boy is putty in his hands. And glimpses of the boy's sight of like in and out of consciousness. It makes it seem like he drilled, like he did a lobotomy because he was talking brain things. And after this drilling, that's the drill, right? Because he liked to drill. For whatever fucking freak chance, this boy gets up and Jeffrey's not around. Spoiler alert. Jeffrey left the boy, not imagining that he would gather up any strength to walk out of his apartment. He was partially right. Because if you watch in episode 2, this boy looked hurt. But according to even recordings, because the nosy neighbor, his daughters, saw this boy come out of Jeffrey's apartment, bloody, bleeding, naked. This boy. They didn't say man. They said boy. And in a daze, in a haze, drugged up. All he knows is he got to get free in some kind of way. He's just trying to get out and walk like a zombie through this hallway. And these girls seem like, excuse me, you're naked. Where you going? And get their mother and all this kind of stuff. They call the cops, which I learned by reading and finding out the cops didn't come right away. And so this was going on, and then the boy ended up like passing out, like not passing out, but like was like slouched over in the front, naked, bleeding, looking like a child. And Niecy Nash, the nosy neighbor, is talking to the cops, and he's like, "How old? How old is this kid? Like, how old is he? There's something's not right. He's bleeding. He's naked, and all this kind of stuff, or whatever." And the cops were like, "Ma'am, blah, 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 blah. Ma'am, calm down. This naked boy right here, bleeding out of his head. This is normal. This is normalcy. Your hysteria? Oh no, that's not normal. You need to calm your tits, miss. Calm your tits. This boy right here, this is okay. This is normalcy. We see this all the time. We're in a drug-filled city, and there's crackheads everywhere. He looking like a homosexual. This boy right here. It's okay. It's okay that he's naked outside, bleeding, looking like he unconscious. It's okay. That's what they should have said. It's okay. Guess who turns the corner? Jeffrey, coming back from the store. And tells them that this is his boyfriend. The first words I ever heard so far from watching episodes 1, 2, and 3 of him ever saying anything about homosexuality. this is boyfriend, whatever name. And so Niecy Nash is all up in the cops. She's like, ask him for some ID. This looks like a child to me. Like, you know, like whatever, this boy. And all this kind of stuff. And so I understand what the media and the news and stuff like this is trying to make this all out to be like some kind of homophobic, because you got to also go back to the time frame that this all is, right? So this is when AIDS, the epidemic of AIDS too, was like all out there, and then the stereotype and the mission to separate even more, like with this homophobia, kind of like AIDS, associating it with that and all this kind of stuff, and not wanting to like be involved. But this is different. There was an appearingly looking like there was no, it's not anymore. There is a boy bleeding naked, and this grown-ass dude talking about that's his boyfriend. Then she gets the cops to tell him that to ask for ID. He says he don't have it because he lost it. Okay. And that he's a drunk and all this kind of stuff, and they had a fight or whatever the case may be, whatever excuses he's making, and this boy cannot speak for himself, he cannot do, but he looked like he dying. Oh, because he was dying. And they just sentenced him to death. So the cops made Niecy mind her business and go inside and all this kind of stuff, that they were going to take care of it. Because Jeffrey was like, you can come inside with me and you can see I have photos of us. But he has naked photos of a boy. A boy! And the depiction here in episode 2 is that the police officers didn't really even want to come into the apartment. They're like, oh, you know, and then the whole cringe of this episode is that they make it seem like the officer, even upon exiting, he's like, I gotta go home and shower, like, first. Like, they gotta go get clean because they feel dirty because they're in this guy's. They didn't really go inside this guy. They asked him about the stench and all this kind of stuff, no ID, and show him a naked picture of a boy there. And they're like, all right, just take care of everything, you and your boyfriend and all this kind of stuff, and left the boy. To make a long story short, there is even, I said from episode 1 to episode 2 that there is you can listen to it yourself, you can watch the episode yourself, too, where there is audio of Niecy Nash calling back after the officers had left, asking them what went down. Like, what happened? He looked like a child. Again, the word child came out so many times and nobody confirmed. But yet they did. You hear the officer say that is not a child, it's an adult. You know that? So guess what happened after they all left? She had to hang up the phone and take that defeat because the officers knew better than she. And who is she? Oh, little on me? I was just checking. She's like, okay, if you say so. And guess who got murdered that night? That boy. And 5 other people after that before he was caught. Because his final attempt at this Tracy Edwards, I don't know the name again, this person escaped. And they were able to catch their killer. But had they really did their job here, they would have learned that that boy was 14 years old. And you just saved him from being murdered. Now let's go back to what we were talking about in episode 1 with the stench. When the officers asked him about that smell, he said the same thing about the bad meat. The refrigerator breaking down and his family sending him meat and all the meat going bad. That was the bad smell. Right. Something's not right. When we keep on allowing for manipulation to rule. How can we learn to honor the unspoken truths some more? But I wanted to learn some more about, because they're never going to really emphasize, oh, what happened to those police officers after all of this? So that's what I was reading about before I hit record, and I want to share it with you too. So we're going to read this in real life too. But either way, I found an article that was in the New York Times that was published August 26, 1991, where the officer is defending his position. 14-year-old Laotian boy, I guess that's what he was, that this cop was agonizing over his lazy, poor, stupid judgment and lack of honor and morale in his position and decision. That he needed to defend himself and say, that's not what happened. Right? Doesn't it sound like classic conditioning of inability to hold oneself accountable? And this is what I was talking about, accountability. Oh, you feel so bad that happened to that boy. Oh, but that's not what happened. I'm not responsible, Officer Joseph T. Gabrish said. The report was, and I quote, a naked, bleeding boy. Inebriated, looks hurt and needs help. Can you help him? Yeah, I took him back into the apartment that he came from, that he was trying to run out from. How about that logic? This boy was trying to leave that place, and he didn't care how he went. Is that not alarming to anyone? Oh yeah, Niecy Nash and her daughters. It seems out of this 45 apartment unit complex, Niecy Nash and her daughters are the only ones that care. The character of Niecy Nash, I learned that she passed away in her 50s. It's sad, right? But let's read this let's look at this New York Times article. Officer defends giving boy back to DAHMER. By the Associated Press, August 26, 1991. See the article in its original context from August 26, 1991, Section A, page 15, okay? About the archive. This is a digitalized version, okay. A police officer suspended for returning a 14-year-old Laotian, I don't know how to say this, but it's Laotian boy to Jeffrey L. Dahmer, who has since admitted killing 17 people, said he had agonized over how he might have prevented the boy's death. Oh, you're in agony? Well, the boy's still dead. And you can't, if I can turn back time. You singing share to us, Joseph? I was in agony. I was in agony. Do you not feel sorry for me? A police officer suspended for returning a 14-year-old Laotian boy to Jeffrey L. Dahmer, who has since admitted killing 17 people, said he had agonized over how he might have prevented the boy's death. God as my witness, I just didn't dump a little boy in the hands of a murderer. That's not what happened. The officer, Joseph T. Gabrish, told the Milwaukee Journal in a story published today. No, that's not what happened! No matter how it's depicted, Netflix could depict it, how anybody's going to depict it. What you did was exactly what you're saying is, God is my witness. Was it the devil? Did the devil make you do it? I'm not blaming this officer, but damn, where's your accountability? That was your job, to protect and serve. God is my witness. I just didn't dump a little boy in the hands of a murderer. That's not what happened. Aww, how many years of therapy that's going to take you to freaking hold yourself accountable for that? On May 27th, neighbors called the police to report seeing, a naked and bleeding boy, B-O-Y, not a man, not an elder, a boy. Run! 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 From Mr. Dahmer's apartment building. After interviewing Mr. Dahmer, Officer Gabrish and two fellow officers accepted his explanation that the youth was an adult and his lover, and that the boy was drunk. The officers went with Mr. Dahmer and the boy to Mr. Dahmer's apartment. The other officers were also suspended. We're going to do some research because a little birdie told me that they were all reinstated over a course of time. How much time? I don't know. Were they reinstated? Is that true? I don't know. But we will learn because that is what we're doing here. We're really seeing the timeline for that which it is. Suspended. And I also heard they were suspended, and when they were reinstated or their back pay was returned. So it was like a fucking vacation. Right? On May 27th, neighbors called the police to report seeing a naked and bleeding boy run from Mr. Dahmer's apartment building. After interviewing Mr. Dahmer, Officer Gabrish and two fellow officers accepted his explanation that the youth was an adult and his lover, and that the boy was drunk. The officers went with Mr. Dahmer. Mind you, this is not me. I'm just reading. You know what I mean? I didn't write any of this. This was printed in 1991. I'm sharing with commentary. Right? Okay. So, the officers went with Mr. Dahmer and the boy to Mr. Dahmer's apartment. The other officers were also suspended. Incident led to protests. After Mr. Dahmer was arrested in July, he told the police that he strangled the boy. Right after they walked out the door. I was like, give me him. Right? Oh, his name is here. I'm going to give it to you now. After Mr. Dahmer was arrested in July, he told the police that he strangled the boy. Konarak synthesomphone. Sorry. So it's Konarak, Konerak. Go look at his picture. Synthesophomo. I don't know. SINTHASOMPHONE. Soon after the officers left. Right after the officers left. And he got a hard on too when he did it. Probably not only just mutilated his corpse, but he never speaks about the sex he has with dead corpses too. Right? He also said the body of another victim was in a bedroom during the officer. Oh, that was the other thing. So this, it's what I can believe I forgot about that. Because they showed this in episode 2. Had they just investigated or even walked fully into his whole entire apartment and gave a look-see around, see, let me give a whole full scope see of what's happening here, they would have found in his bedroom, because remember, these are all one bedroom apartment units, on the opposite side of the bed, a dead body laying there on the floor. Had they even went into the bedroom fully, they would have saw the bloody mattresses, the blood everywhere. And then maybe they would have thought about, maybe we shouldn't leave this fucking boy here. And maybe we should come back with a real search warrant. But if you see a dead fucking corpse laying on there, there's no need for a search warrant. Like, you're under arrest. Do you not see what happened here? Wait till we get to episode 3 when you realize that we're saying, oh my gosh, had the officers done their job, right? 5 other people wouldn't have died. But in episode 3, you're going to learn that, oh my God, had the officers done their job, 17 other people would have fucking still been alive too. We're going to talk about that too. Right? Wait. Let me see what else is there. Okay. The police say Mr. Dahmer killed 4 more times after the brush with the officers. News of the encounter with the Laotian boy led to protests by people who said the police had missed a chance to stop Mr. Dahmer. Missed a chance. They didn't even do their job. Missed a chance. They didn't do their job. They didn't miss a chance. They didn't do their job. Others accused the officers of racism and homophobia. Oh, yeah. That's where they're going to take everything. No, the officers just did not do their job. And should be fired without pay. And prosecuted too. Mr. Dahmer was arrested after a man in handcuffs fled his apartment and alerted police. Officers later found parts of 11 men in the apartment. Mr. Dahmer told the police he had lured the men to his apartment with the promise of sex and then killed them. He is charged with 15 killings and has confessed to killing 2 other men since 1978. Officer Gibrish, 28 years old, a patrolman for 7 years, said he and the other officers believed there was a caring relationship between Mr. Dahmer and the Laotian boy and saw no reason to intervene. I could cry because I didn't read this and I'm reading this with you right now. Officer Gibrish, 28 years old, a patrolman for 7 years, said he and the other officers believed there was a caring relationship between Mr. Dahmer and the Laotian boy and saw no reason to intervene. Let's go scroll back up to this fucking article. On May 27th, neighbors. So this is May 27th. Oh my gosh. May 27th of this year, 2022, my grandpa just died. And I'm wearing his shirt for today's episode, and I was gonna say that in the beginning. Like, I'm wearing my grandpa's shirt today. Like, anyways, side note. Right? All right. But on May 27th, neighbors called the police. Let's go back down. Officer Gibrish, 28 years old, a patrolman for 7 years. That's the police, right? Okay. So he may not have gotten directly the call, but he got the message. Right? On May 27th, neighbors called the police to report seeing a naked and bleeding boy run from Mr. Dahmer's apartment. Let's go back down. Look at this cop out. He's not a cop, he's a cop out. Officer Gabrish, 28 years old, unable to hold himself accountable for the stupidity and the not doing his job, along with the other officers too. Said he and the other officers believed, because they're gonna all stick together, right? You can say, oh, that's all the police force. Nah, that was just 3 men who fucked up, and they're gonna stick together and die with their lie. They didn't have to be police officers to make that kind of fucking lie bond. Just stupid humans, right? Believe there was a caring relationship. When? Where did you believe there was a caring relationship with this boy was naked, looking like he was dying, and he had a hole in his head, and he was bleeding profusely, and trying to run from this apartment that you just brought him back to? Make it make sense. It don't. It really don't. Wait till we get to episode 3. Okay? In episode 3, they will have you like white privilege and make it all about race. Listen, you can continue with your race war. You're just going to keep cycling years of generational curses into your world. Okay. This continues. We're trained to be observant and spot things. What about all the blood? Did you spot that? How about the other officer that just looked into the bedroom? Did you see the dead corpse on the other side? Or how about the blood-stained mattress covers? We are trained to observe. I want to know what school you went to, and I want to know what training you went to, because what kind of observing is this? Did you check out the place? Did you really scope it out? No, you did not. But you were trained for this. Why are you being paid? That is automatic already another firing. You're trained and you didn't do your job. So just admit that. You didn't do your job. I know that we are trained to be observant and spot things, but we did not do our job. Right? There was just nothing that stood out. No dead corpse, no blood-stained carpets, no foul odor and stench that was just, you could throw up in your mouth. No bloody boy naked there that looks like he's a fucking young boy. And the dead corpse and the bloody mattress. No, we didn't see anything that stood out to us. Because you didn't do your job. That's the real problem. Right there. You didn't do your job. This has nothing to do. You can have your personal reasons and all this kind of stuff. You can make it about homophobia. You can make it about this. You can make it about... You didn't do your job. Period. I don't care what anybody else has to say. They did not do their job. Anything else you want to make it about, then that's your own unhealed version of yourself acting out and projecting your bullshit onto a situation that you're trying to freaking like jump on and create more hype for. Go heal yourself so that you can just look at the situation for what it is. They did not do their job. You should never have been reinstated. Simply for them not doing their job. Protect and serve. There was a bloody, naked, inebriated boy. And they did not protect nor serve his condition. They could have took him to a fucking hospital. Leave it in the hands of his lover. Oh, I'm going to take care of him. Take him to the fucking hospital because you look bloody. Granted, I can understand drunk. You look bloody. Let me take you to the hospital and make sure you're okay. Because I'm here to protect and serve and just make sure for peace of fucking mind. So I can lay my head at night and go to sleep. I know that I at least took you to the hospital to get to let a doctor say that you're okay. Not this boyfriend. Murderer. Serial killer. Nothing's gonna make this article right. We're trained to be observant and spot things, he said. There was just nothing that stood out. Or we would have seen it. Really? Because there was plenty of things in there when you entered or semi-entered or looked. Oh, okay, everything seems okay. Right? There was no reference in the journal article to anything the officer saw or to the smell that Mr. Dahmer has said filled the apartment because of the body in the bedroom. Officer Gabrish spoke to the newspaper with the understanding that the interview would not focus on the incident, already the subject of inquiries by the state attorney general and the Milwaukee police. So he really thought he was going to get an interview and not be questioned about the incident. What? So what, you fame hungry? You just want attention? So what is this interview for? We're not going to talk about the incident because this is the only reason why we're talking to you. Because of this incident. That makes no sense. 2 lawyers for the police union accompanied Officer Gabrish for the interview. Mr. Dahmer neighbors have maintained that the Laotian boy was not removed by the officers because Mr. Dahmer was white and the witnesses were black. The officers are white. Officer Gabrish said, no, they just did not do their job. Again, I wasn't there. I just hate when everybody makes everything even just more complicated. And granted, there's a lot of factors and features that can come in and all this kind of stuff. They did not do their job. It had nothing to do with white and all this kind of stuff and all this kind of stuff. They did not do their job. They let their own personal whatever fuck they were doing, and they didn't see any importance to these low lives they were looking at. Had nothing to do with color. It was all of them. To the officers, all of those people there were low lives. Color had nothing to do with it. And especially if they were thinking that Jeffrey Dahmer is homosexual and all this kind of stuff, low life and beneath them. And they didn't even want to be near you guys. That's a whole other just kind of, and it had nothing to do with the color of their skin. It's just what they think of the whole entire lot of views. It's just like hierarchy systems, and somebody thinks they're better than you just because they have more money than you or this and that. It's just something like that. We can categorize and say all these kind of other kind of things that play factors, and for some it might play. But the bigger problem, the root of the problem is not these little things. These are just distractions from the bigger thing. This is just humanity as a whole being stupid, being desensitized from their own fucking environment and creating excuses and all this kind of shit. Okay. Sorry. But all right. So Officer Gabrish said he had worked in Milwaukee's inner city for most of his career, sometimes with black officers, and was shocked that he and the other officers were accused of racism and homophobia. I've seen some flashes on the news, people walking with signs and saying these officers are racist. He said, I wonder where the thousands and thousands of people from the black community are that I've helped. Oh, victim. This world is crazy. This world is like, oh, not the victim. But like, anyways, this is what I mean. Like, how do we solve anything if you never get past the ability? Hold on 1 second. I heard you. Right. So we're gonna wrap up episode 2, right? And just I just came across some more information that, and this goes to show, like, just like the propaganda of information too. Okay, understand this. So I have just read to you an article from the New York Times that was published August 26th in 1991. Just go to Wikipedia. I think this is Wikipedia. Looking up Mr. Joseph T. Gabrish, right? And also, hold on. Right, so John A. Balcerzak as a former police officer from Milwaukee, Wisconsin. Balcerzak and Joseph T. Gabrish, those are the 2 officers, right, gained national attention in 1991 when they were suspended with pay, because I said without before, but I was wrong, and later fired for having handed over an injured 14-year-old boy to a serial killer, Jeffrey Dahmer. But we're going to continue because this was not said in the New York Times. And this is interesting, and it makes me even more mad. Because remember what the report was, a naked, bleeding boy, okay? Right? So when they were suspended with pay and later fired for having handed over an injured 14-year-old boy to serial killer Jeffrey Dahmer, despite bystanders were protesting, that was the neighbors and all this kind of stuff, as well as for the homophobic remarks made by the officers during the incident. So again, I wasn't there. I don't know what they said based off of episode 2 and whatever homophobic remarks they were saying. It was just Again, I didn't write those things down. People get upset with everything, like that you can say, you know, it was just like Candace Owen had said something the other day. She's like, someone of the important message that she was conveying, someone was upset with her because she had said sex without marriage. Like that's what they chose to beat her down for, like, because she used that, like, oh, who are you, like your holy sanctimony Christianity kind of attitude, that kind of thing. So I feel like the ignorance that was like back then on homophobia, AIDS, and all this kind of stuff, I'm not making excuses for the language that is used and all this kind of stuff, but everybody wants to always be butthurt about something. But this goes deep and talking about butt fucking hurt. Okay, it doesn't fucking matter because this still doesn't make sense, right? My cat too doesn't think it made sense. So, as well as for the homophobic remarks made by the officers during the incident, the officers appealed their termination and were subsequently reinstated with back pay of $55,000 each by Judge Robert J. Parents. Balzac served as president of the Milwaukee Police Association, the police union for Milwaukee officers, from 2005 to 2009. Balzac retired from the Milwaukee Police Department in 2007. Right? Okay? Right? So Dahmer's incident, right, with Konarak Synthesomphone, the kid, right? He was born December 1st, 1976, Sagittarius, right, in Western astrology, Scorpio, and Vedic astrology. He died on May 27, 1991. He was 14 years old. His resting place is in Holy Cross Cemetery in a mausoleum, okay? His nationality was Laotian American, and he's known for being one of the victims of Jeffrey Dahmer. 3 women, Sandra Smith, Tina Spivey, and Nicole Childress, discovered the victim, 14-year-old Konarak, after he had managed to escape from Jeffrey Dahmer's apartment, naked, bruised, bleeding from his butt. And heavily under the influence of something, drugs. Childress called 911, and Balzac, Joseph T. Gabrish, and Richard Porobukhan responded, along with the fire department ambulance. The fire department's ambulance came too. The report was of a naked boy bleeding from his butt too. And there was an ambulance there. Ambulance personnel thought that that there's Konarak, the boy, needed treatment, but they were sent away by the officers. Although the Laotian immigrant had been in the country for 10 years and spoke English fluently, in his drugged and brain-injured state, because remember the lobotomy, he was unable to communicate his situation to authorities or to the 3 women. Mind you, his butt was bleeding too. Did you forget that, guys? Dahmer convinced the police that the boy was his 19-year-old lover against the protest of the 3 women. Smith recognized the boy from the neighborhood, and the 3 women reiterated their concerns, but were told to shut the hell up by the officers, who were convinced the incident was a domestic dispute. Because they got training. They got training that's better than yours, because you is nobody up in here. So shut up, shut up, shut up. You don't know what you're talking about. This is a domestic dispute between 2 homosexuals, even though that boy looks like a minor. We don't care about that kind of stuff happening over here. We got other things to do. Okay. Yeah. So the 3 officers returns Konarak to Dahmer's apartment. Balzac, his name, Balzac, said he smelled nothing unusual. He smelled nothing unusual. Liar. He's a liar. This officer right here is a liar. He's a liar. Said he smelled nothing unusual because he has rotting corpse flesh in his home too. Him too, he's a serial sadistic killer. And serial sadistic killers protect their serial sadistic killer friends. So we're not going to alert them to the flesh rotting smell that never mind. I just anyways. But Gaber said he did detect the foul smell, likely emanating from the body of Tony Anyhoo, who had been murdered by DAHMER 3 days earlier. So there was a 3-day rotting corpse in the bedroom. Right? The officers listed the incident as a domestic squabble between homosexuals, right? And did not otherwise act. Approximately 10 minutes after the police left, Glenda Cleveland, Childress' aunt and Smith's mother, called police and was connected with Balzac, the one that didn't smell anything. Maybe he was stuffy that day. Who dismissed her concern and declined to take the names of her niece and daughter as witness. Within an hour later, DAHMER murdered Konarak, performed oral sex upon his corpse, and dismembered him. What? For this murder, for the murders of Konarak and 16 others from 1978 to 1991, DAHMER would be sentenced to 15 consecutive terms of life imprisonment without parole. In 1992, he was beaten to death without parole in 1992 and was beaten to death in 1994 by a fellow inmate, murderer Christopher Scarver. So, what do you think about that? We have a time of an alignment. You can get mad and you can call it this and you can call it that and all this kind of stuff. In episode 1, one of you had commented and said that it's sad that this has to be publicized and a movie has to be made and all this kind of stuff or whatever the case, and that's wrong, and it's a sad world that, you know, this is how people get paid, and, you know, and the history continues to live on in these cycles of generations that it keeps getting shared upon and all this kind of stuff, right? You know, we can't fault information for any kind of leveling of destructions and all this kind of stuff or whatever. It's the person behind the information, delivering the information and the misinformation and all this kind of stuff and all this kind of things. Like, but this is the world we live in. I don't want to okay everything that, oh, well, that's the world then we live in today and all this kind of stuff. But I do like to find the evolution. That's why I'm doing these recordings, because there's so much to grow from all of this. You can look at it and say it's sad. It's very sad that this all had to go down. But where are we now? Has times changed? Like, we can keep on saying it's this, it's that, it's this and that, it's this and that, but it's everything. It's everyone. It's not just one thing, it's everything. These officers have no real accountability. Or maybe they do. Or maybe they don't. You know, we can argue the fact about Jeffrey Dahmer being a monster, but he was accountable. So he has an opportunity to evolve. Those living in denial not holding themselves accountable, projecting on out, creating more war where there's war. Where's the evolution in that? If nothing changes, nothing changes. If you can't change the reality of something, shift your perspective. So how can our perspective shift about this major like upset and horrible reality that took place and so many people have suffered because of it? Hold on a second. There was a lot of things going on during this time frame that we can say it was because of this, we can say it was because of this. But as a collective and as a whole, it was everyone and everything. How can we make that better? Help me. I don't have all the answers. But all of this could have been avoided. And wait till I get to episode 3. Because episode 2 never had to take place. Had episode 3 been taken care of the way that it should have been taken care of. Because it could have saved 17 other people's lives. So the ripple effects of continued distorted behaviors and denials and lack of ability to hold ourselves accountable or be real, you know? Anyways, like I said, this is very interesting, right? This whole Jeffrey Dahmer, like, series is for enlightenment. Don't get so caught up into the horror, but let's learn and grow from it. You know what I mean? So, how, like, you know, questions, I wrote down a question: how gullible and agreeable do we become even when shit don't feel right? That's going back into the whole ignoring your intuition and feelings about something. Like, you know, there's so much more that we could possibly do and all this kind of stuff, but, you know, sometimes we feel like we hit a wall. Do we give up? Do we just comply? Our intuition is always present. We always have the opportunity to connect and to dial up and to dial in, and to always, the same way we can operate from our lowest selves, we can operate from our most high. Right? So our ability to like interpret is important here. Our perception is important here. How can we learn to honor unspoken truths more, even if we don't in that moment fully understand it? Because there was a lot of unspoken truths that were happening in these episodes that we're seeing that didn't feel right. And the shit got downplayed. And so many people died. So many people cried. Which brings me back to this whole emotionally disconnected world. This emotional disconnect from one's emotions and reality and truth. With so much projection on out, like, it's just like, whoa. You know what I mean? But $100 gets you killed with Jeffrey Dahmer. And you don't even get the $100 because when one of the kids asked him for the money, they're like, give it to me now. He only had $23. So what do we say? The advice to that is make sure that they got the $100 before you go get yourself killed. Is it really that much worth it? Anywho. So I am looking forward to your commentary and stuff like that, and let me know what you think about this, your take on this. Are you following the story? Have you followed the story? What part of, where are you in this development and stuff like that? Do you care? Do you not care? Like, were there things that I shared on here that maybe you didn't know and you're like, oh, wow, okay, wow, that happened too, okay. Like, you know what I mean? Like, don't always just take in information and not really like investigate it or understand it for yourself or find the truth for it in yourself instead of just taking in what everybody says. I'm very disturbed by episode 1's depiction of the escapee, the one that brought down this whole entire thing, because he had he didn't want to die. I know the other ones didn't want to die either. But he didn't want to die. He didn't want to die. And even through all this shit that he's been put through in survival too, they got him painted like a homosexual to fit their narrative. I think that's kind of fucked up. And instead of people doing their own investigation and really, like, they just take it all in and say, oh, gay. You know what I'm saying? The same thing with taking in with these officers. In agony. I was in agony. I did not get a 14-year-old back to a murder. Yes, you did. You didn't do your job. Stand up straight, soldier. Right. So stay tuned. Thank you so much, because we're going to go into episode 3. And I got notes for that one too. And a lot to say. So yeah, so make sure to like this video, because it helps me to grow my channel. Subscribe to my channel if you're not already subscribed. Hit that notification bell. I made a new series of this, so you can find all of it, all of the videos in this one, what is those things called? Playlist. I'm learning. So you can see too in my my community tabs, I'm learning things about this world. I feel like I was dropped off from another planet, and I don't speak all of your languages. So I'm learning and stuff like that. So playlist. I made a playlist for this specific series so that you don't have to get so lost in all my videos that I upload, because I do short videos, I do long videos, I do tarot videos, I do battling videos, I do this videos, I do that videos. It's whatever I want to do. All right. So this one though is going to be labeled, of course, but it has its own playlist. So you can go, if you don't know where all the videos are, go to the playlist, this Jeffrey Dahmer playlist. Everything will be there simply for you. Okay, awesome. So the description box I use like a diary, like, you know what I mean? So if it's not updated and stuff like that, come back, it'll be updated. All the information that you need to connect with me more will be in the description box too, because there's a master link there for you to click on. That will have every single link that links you and I in every single capacity. Also, you can follow me on Instagram at Enchantress, ENCHANTRESS. That's me, the one and only. Yeah, you can also check out witchyutopian.com. That is my personal website and stuff like that. There is also another link to our merch shop with cool designs and different things for you to, you know, it's a mystic vibe, you know, kind of a line shop as well. So all those links will be in the master link, obviously, and also included in the stuff. The description box, you know, whatever. I update it when I can. I gotta get out of here though. So either way, this is episode 2. Spoiler alert, I spoke a lot of things. I'll tell you like the whole synopsis and all that kind of things in my own babbling way. So either way, episode 3 coming soon. Yeah, so hit that notification bell too, so you know when I upload too. Thank you so much. Till next time.